Hello, you fabulous Fujoshi and you fantastic Fudanshi, and to the rest of you, behave yourselves. Welcome back to another one of our weekly Ascendance of a Bookworm Season 3 discussion videos. Today we're here to talk all about Episode 7. Before we get into it though, let's see if we can't get this video to 100 likes before the end of the day. That's a challenge to you. Let's see if we can hit it. But with that said, let's go ahead and talk about Episode 7, shall we? This was an episode that that I assume anyway, a few people might think that I had a hard time sitting through because it involves my two least favorite characters in the show. Basically it's mostly about Delia and Mine, who I don't really like these two, right? So I'm like, it'd be awesome if it was about someone else. It's not. But the thing is, and again, this is just kind of a testament to the writing this season, that even though it involves two characters who I don't really like, it's not like I hate Mine or I hate Delia, I'm not a fan of theirs, right? They kind of annoy me, so I just kind of shrug my shoulders and roll my eyes when they show up and then kind of get distracted by other characters in the background. I'm like, oh, what's Lutz doing? Or like, oh, what's Benno doing? All right, but when they're on screen this season, I do typically care a little bit more than I did in Season 2. And the reason for that is because the writing is just better this season. I can't really explain why. I don't know if this is down to series composer, the series composition being stronger, the individual writers being stronger, the source material, I guess, kind of. It could be the source, but then again, the source material is what it's been for the last two seasons, and Season 2 was really bad. And I know a part of that was because a lot of people said that there was a lot of cuts and alterations to the material. So when it comes to anime, when it comes to anime and the writing, some things we can put on the source and the author, and then other things, obviously, you're gonna have, differing opinions, right? As an example, in Game of Thrones, yeah, sure, you could talk about how George R. R. Martin did such a good job writing Game of Thrones, but when you're talking about the show, you're also mainly, and you're talking about the writing in particular, sure, you're kind of talking about Martin, but for the most part, you're actually talking about D&D. You're talking about Dan and Dave, and how the writing, leapt off a friggin' cliff in the last few seasons. But that's okay, because we're not here to talk about Game of Thrones. We're here to talk about Ascendance of a Bookworm. But because of that, I feel as though it is important that anime fans also acknowledge the series composer, which is the person, basically the head writer of the series, as well as the individual script writers, although they usually don't have the individual, episode writers. Typically, the people writing the script for each episode typically don't have as much say as the series composer, and the series composer basically has to work with the material given to them by the author. So it's a tricky job. It's a tricky job being a series composer, and I think the composition for Season 3 is just stronger. I don't know if the composer changed, right, hands between Seasons 1 and 2 and 3. I don't know if it's been the same person the whole time and they just, started drinking coffee in the morning instead of whatever it was they were drinking before. But it's a lot better. It's a lot better. Just the way that the characters are written makes me not really roll my eyes when they show up anymore. Mine is a lot less creepy and annoying, and Delia's still annoying. Delia's still annoying, but introducing Dirk, or I forget how they pronounce his name, but it's spelled like Dirk, right? Introducing Dirk was a good idea for Delia's character, which is more to do with the source, but I think the way that even she's been speaking lately is a lot more tolerable than before, where she was this obnoxious brat. But again, there are some things in Season 2 that kind of, did help her get to that point. So even though I don't really like that season, you can point to things in Season 2 and be like, well, that's what made Delia a better person. Mine included in that as well. So even though I normally would hate this episode, it's a lot more tolerable. And I think adding Dirk into the story actually is a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina, because it's there's this character, he has devouring, ooh, it's a monkey wrench, right? It's ooh, you better hurry up and get adopted, Mine, so that you can adopt this kid Dirk, so that he doesn't end up getting used and abused by some friggin' noble. Oh, more time added to the clock, right? The countdown timer's getting faster and faster. right? Like, it's a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina, but I like it because we've already established that a lot of kids, well, not a lot of kids, but kids get the devouring, and, you know, it's not uncommon. Well, I mean, it's not like, it's not common, but it's not uncommon, you know what I mean? Like, it's not this, like, ultra, oh my god, holy shit, rare thing that nobody knows about. Like, it's not like mine's the only one. This is a thing that happens. So Dirk having the devouring, which is not what I thought I thought we were going with it. So I do like that change, because I thought it was going to be like an illness that like spreads, right, and then maybe gets back to mine's home and something happens, right? So I'm relieved that we didn't go there. Instead, it's actually that Dirk has the devouring, which is, again, a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina, because it kind of puts more pressure on mine to get adopted by Karstedt, who I will just forever refer to as Cars. But I do like it because, again, the world set up, like the logic of the show has already set up that like kids with devouring is not like a incredibly rare sight. Still kind of rare, but not incredibly rare. So we already had that set up. So by the time we actually see mine be like, oh shit, right, and like and piece together what's happening, it sort of has you on the edge, right, where you're like, what's gonna happen? Like, well, like it has you on the edge of your seat, thinking like, what are we gonna do? And again, I do like that it adds time to the clock. I like that like Delia and mine are sort of bonding through Dirk. What is it? Damuel. I think that's his name. The boring night guy. And I'm so sorry, because I know people probably love this friggin' character, but like, there's nothing to him in the show. He's bland as bland can be. So Damuel's just like, oh, you better open the door and stuff. He's just kind of being an ass to Delia, which, like, it's Delia, so I didn't super care. But I was like, a little weird. You can't open a door for mine. It's kind of weird. Like, I get it, right? Like, it's like, oh, but it's traditions and honoring your nobles and blah, blah, blah. Ugh, stupid. But yeah, Delia opens the door to the orphanage and finds out it's actually not quite as bad as she thought it was, which I thought she already knew that it wasn't as bad as she thought it was, but maybe I missed that. But yeah, Delia and mine growing closer through Dirk. Delia yelling at everybody because Dirk almost flipped right off the friggin' right off the bed was, I'm not gonna lie, kind of hilarious. But you know, saved, so he's fine. Yeah, I don't know. It was a good episode. Again, like my big thing, the thing that I keep kind of cycling back to, right, is I think that the writing this season is a lot more improved. It's a lot more tolerable. I didn't have a great time, you know, because again, even though the writing is better, it's still two characters that I don't really care about. So like, I'm like, okay. I mean, I guess, right? I mean, obviously with mine, it's like, well, she's the main character, so you're gonna kind of have to deal with her. But with Delia, it's like, okay, fine, right? But like in season 2, this would have been a painful experience, whereas in season 3, it's just kind of like, all right, like it's kind of like a mid-tier episode. I'm like, yeah, all right, fair enough, right? Although the devouring reveal, again, like I said, is pretty cool. But the thing that I kind of keep cycling back to is, again, A, the writing is good, and B, I am just waiting for everything to go to shit. Like, I can feel it in my bones that the spoiler that I was told is probably true. And I'm just waiting for everything to fall apart, right? Because I'm like, something bad is going to happen. I don't quite know what it is. I just know shit's gonna go south. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in me bones, even though I'm a puppet man and I don't have bones. I can feel it in me stuffing. Things are just gonna go south. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of excited to see that happen. Like, I'm kind of curious to see if the show is really gonna go in the direction I think it's gonna go in, because I think it'd be interesting at the very least. I would have some issues with it, but I think that it would be cool just to see them try it, right? Like, because that's the thing, is like, I'm curious enough to see them try it, and I'm willing to give them some time to flesh that out, but I'm also concerned that that might be where I kind of run away from the series because of reasons. You'll see when we get there. Again, if what I think is going to happen happens, it's a big asterisk, you know, big if. But the series is kind of hinting at a lot of things, and I don't know, I'm just curious. I'm just really, really curious where we're going to go with this show. Yeah, I don't know. Also, we have Heidi show up again. I'm not gonna lie, the Heidi stuff, like, every time we see Heidi and... I can't remember his name. Heidi and the other guy. I'm more and more, like, intrigued by Heidi and the other guy, because they just seem more fun, right, than mine and her stuff. Even though the things that they're doing where it's like, oh, we're trying to mix paint. I'm like, okay. We literally have a side quest right now where we're watching paint dry. I want that to sink in. I know that there's more to it than that. I am very aware that there's more to it than that, but I just want that to, like, really settle in there for a little bit. Really sink in, you know what I'm saying? Because something about that's just funny. I don't know why, I just think that that's funny. But yeah, Heidi's great. I love Heidi. I think I think the show is going in an interesting direction. I'm just kind of curious, right? Because, like, the Heidi stuff feels a lot more like season 1 stuff, right? So it feels weird to be having this, like, side quest, especially when we skipped so many things that, like, I would have actually rathered. Even though I like Heidi a lot, there's a lot of, like, story stuff that they skipped over that I felt like you could have just slotted that stuff in there and it would have flowed better, right? Like, again, I think Damuel meeting Gunther is so important and we skipped it. Right? And I'm like, that's so weird. Like, we only see it for, like, a split second. And I'm like, that could have been an entire episode right there. Right? Like, that's the one thing about the season that is, like, I know has to be driving some people crazy. Because even I'm noticing it, and I don't really know what's going to happen. I know, like, a spoiler. I know nothing beyond that. I haven't read the source material. I don't particularly care for the source material. But if you do, I know that's got to be driving you nuts. Going, like, why are we skipping that? That is important. So I can only imagine what those folks are thinking. But that said, though, that's pretty much where I think I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts here. Again, like, I don't have a whole lot to say because it's an episode that I wasn't, like, super attached to. But I do think, again, the show is just continuously moving in this direction where it's like something's gonna give, and I think next episode is like ominous something. I can't remember what it was called, but it's enough that I'm like, yep. We keep moving in this direction. Like, it keeps getting more and more, like things, like, for mine look more and more, like, dire. Like, things just keep getting piled onto her plate, and I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, because eventually something's got to give, and I think she's just, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. But I am very, very curious to see where the show goes. But with that said, outro. And that's going to do it for today's video, everybody. So we hope you all enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot. Share the video around. And of course, I have to give a big thank you to our lovely patrons. Look at these beautiful people. All these people who help keep this channel afloat. I sincerely appreciate it. And of course, I have to give a big thank you to Asaki VT, Elizabeth Just Elizabeth, Jeremy P, Matt87 Eagle, Shadow Creative, Shiorans, Stephen G, Stevie W, Trapmaster, Trevor W, and Tristan G. Thank you all once again so much for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon or here on YouTube just by watching the videos. I sincerely appreciate it. Be good, and we will see you next time.